What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to talk about what's happening with the overall market by using some very useful tools to talk about what's happening with correlations in the past and what the current signals are suggesting about the way the market's moving. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. Anyways, as far as the market's going, I just want to say that we are still bullish right now as the market's trying to make higher highs and higher lows. But despite the fact that we're pumping the way we are, there is still a large bearish divergence that continues to develop on the S&P 500 and also on the QQQ and Nasdaq. So, yes, the market is trying to push higher. Yes, we're looking more bullish. Yes, we could go higher, but there is a warning I have for everyone about the way the market's pushing. So, I'm going to be using this tool known as Forecaster, which is very useful for looking at historical data to understand what's going to likely happen in the markets and what trends suggest. And if you sign up with my link down below, you're going to qualify for a 10% discount for your subscription. So, anyways, so as far as this market's going, I just want to say that we're bullish, right? We're very, very bullish. We're holding up very, very well. But the problem is that this time of year last year, this is when the market was forming its top. And we started this pullback as soon as we got to the August period. And right now, there's a 95.96% correlation between the current year right now and what we saw last year, right? The way at which the market kind of like pulled back during that April to May period. Then we started this rally from May up until July. And then typically in August, that's when the market does tend to start pulling back in that August to September period. So we're not promising this will happen, but there is a very, very high correlation in the charts looking at this data. There's a very, very good chance that could lead to a very, very big move. On top of this, the S&P 500 is overbought right now. It could go higher. It could continue to basically push, but our indicators show the market's on the verge of topping out very soon. Our advanced DPO also shows that the market is currently in a hold phase. So we're not in a strong sell zone yet, but we're still getting closer to it. So I just want to give you guys that warning all over again. I know I've been saying this for a while because, once again, the data is giving us a lot of nice heads up about this. But you have to consider that as we continue to pump and as we continue to squeeze, it's becoming riskier and riskier every single day. Historically, when you look at what happens after elections, okay, what tends to happen is that we do tend to see pullbacks during the post year after an election. We tend to pull back in that August to September period, at least historically. And then the factors that could be affecting us may include like Apple's earnings, the big tech earnings for next week. That could be one factor depending on what they're going to be doing with their AI spending. Will these big tech companies continue to invest more into AI, or are they going to be looking for changes? And what's going to happen to their margins amidst the high tariffs? Could that also affect the markets? We also have the FOMC meeting. We know Jerome Powell and the Fed are going to once again keep rates the same, but keep in mind the last FOMC suggested this would happen, and they told us there's going to be a risk of higher inflation, and the last inflationary numbers were higher than expected. So we saw an increase in inflation. That is not the best of news for the markets. And if the Fed starts addressing this, if the Fed starts talking about how they may have to keep rates higher for longer due to the uncertainty, that could be a little bit more negative for the markets. So it all depends, guys. Not saying we have to sell off yet, but there is a high probability the market's going to come down to start filling some of these gaps. There's a very, very good chance it's going to be happening very soon. When you look at the daily time frame on the SPY chart, yes, we're holding up very well, but there's a lot of gaps that are still left. There's one at 629. I think there's another gap right over here at this. There's some in the 610s. There's one over here around 608. There's another big one over here around 600. So a pretty sizable 5% downside move is very possible for that August to September period, as the market's been just like pumping almost nonstop for many, many months, right? Ever since that tariff delay news came out, that also contributes to why the market was pumping. The tariff deadline is going to be on August 1st, so we're going to see how that ends up affecting things. And that's why I want to give you guys a warning about this. Same thing with the QQQ, right? We're pushing very, very nicely, very strong for now. We could be going higher, but we have a lot of unfilled gaps. There's a gap over here. We're watching this gap at 540, another big one at 531. There's also another one down here at 510, but that is quite far. But a very, very realistic move towards like the 530 to 540 area could be coming for a very, very modest and healthy pullback. I would not be surprised if that ends up happening. When you look at the QQQ, the current year has a 95% correlation with the last year as well. And we were basically in a topping process. We actually started our pullback around this period. So we're going to see if we start to see some kind of pullback in August/September, if we get these pullback moves before the market forms some kind of bottom or not. That's also another possibility. Our indicators also show the same thing, basically, that our weekly averages are still quite neutral. But once again, we tend to see shorts do a lot better in that August to September period. And then if you want to see other things that are very useful, such as what happens with politicians, when are they selling more? Are they buying more? They've been selling into this rally so far. And if you want more details about who's buying, who's selling, you guys can also check this out. It's a very, very good feature to check out what's happening with insider trades if you guys are interested in signing up. When it comes to our overview, like I said before, the market is still, bullish overall. We're still holding up very well, but I would still warn to be very, very careful. Another benefit is you guys can also see the news, what's really affecting the market for now. So keep that in mind. And you can see what else is going on. So is the market bullish? For now, we're pumping very, very nicely, but we're becoming overbought, and there's a good chance we're going to be topping out soon, right? Within a week or two, the market may be forming its top, and then there could be a bigger pullback. Now, there's other tickers like Tesla. I want to make analysis of Tesla. Tesla's in a very interesting phase because, as you could tell, we're just getting rejections off this trend line right over here. And we're also trying to hold this support here. So I do think that Tesla's looking kind of neutral. So the way I would draw this out is I would remove all my drawings and kind of draw it out like this. We're looking at this as our like resistance area. And then you're looking at this as your support area from down here, which is why Tesla's in a more like neutral phase if we end up holding support. And then we're going to likely just try to continue to consolidate, and we're going to see which way this ends up breaking as time goes on for Tesla. Tesla's neutral. It's not super bullish, not super bearish. We're just stuck in the middle, and we've been seeing a much larger consolidation for many months. Now, we're not in a phase where you should be buying up Tesla really hard, right? When we saw that big pullback towards that 200 area, that was a good buying opportunity. And then Forecaster did a very, very good job at using our DPO. Right over here, when we were at 362, we got some sell ratings. So we got these like yellow indicators right here. This tells us that this was a sell signal, and this is when it recommended selling. So if you had sold Tesla at like 362, you would have caught the top and actually been able to like rebuy at lower levels. That was a very, very useful tool, at least for now. But we're still neutral. So we're not super bullish, not super bearish. We're still stuck in the middle. So that's the reason why I'm telling you that I'm not like buying Tesla heavily over here, but I'm also not selling heavily. I'm just in the middle. I'm holding longer term shares, but I have reduced them to some extent because of these indicators. And I'm going to be looking for a good buying opportunity in case we do get some kind of pullback move because of seasonality and also because of other factors. You guys can see what different analysts are saying about Tesla's fair value. Currently, the price is below the average fair value. So that just tells us that as it dips more, we're going to be looking for more buying opportunities. And then I also want to add that when it comes to the way Tesla's moving, when it comes to seasonality, okay, there's not a really very high correlation with how it's moved 5 years ago. But overall, it's been on an uptrend, and this is what typically happens. On a monthly basis, we tend to see interesting data as well, as we tend to see some nuances here and there. But keep in mind that with this essentially coming out, we tend to see a very, very interesting correlation right here. So typically, when you look at like the month of July, what tends to happen is the average returns do slow down towards the end of July right over here. So typically, when you approach the end of July, that's when Tesla begins to slow down historically. And then when you get to like other periods such as like August, okay, that's when we also see a lot of selling. So August tends to be a more of a bearish month for Tesla. There's a lot of selling that happens right over here. And then September, you could also see the same thing is going on. It's kind of mixed. Sometimes we're bullish, sometimes we're bearish in September. But I just want to give you guys warnings about these months because sometimes you see data that looks just like that. So with that being said, that's what we're seeing on our charts. August tends to be a little bit weaker for Tesla. Despite the fact that it's quite neutral, I think that we're still trying to hold up. But my warning for everyone is that there might be opportunity if the market does pull back in the August period. Our indicators still suggest that's a strong possibility. And Tesla also has a high correlation with the S&P 500. If that starts to sell off, that could also affect Tesla. So am I buying the market up like crazy? I'm not really a big buyer or a massive seller yet. I'm still neutral as the market could try to climb higher, but I am becoming more cautious. I'm starting to reduce my positions the higher we go because I believe that this rally is becoming more and more riskier the closer we get to August. So there's a 95% correlation between the markets right now and what we saw last year. And the market did start to sell off around August. So that is a very, very interesting statistic. And then On top of that, I do want to warn you guys because of seasonality and other factors. We don't know what's going to happen with the big tech earnings and also with the FOMC meeting. So I would recommend waiting for those things to pan out. And then if these sell ratings remain, which they likely will, there's a good chance we could be forming a top soon. But just don't know what the catalyst is going to be, whether it's the tariffs, whether it's, other factors, whether it's, the big tech earnings, whatever the factor is, there is that good chance of some sort of pullback move in August/September. With that being said, guys, always remember the saying that goes that history does not have to repeat itself perfectly, but it does tend to rhyme. So we do tend to see very similar correlations that happen historically on charts. And the best thing to do is be very, very unbiased about them. So please keep that in mind. That's what we're essentially doing for now. So that being said, guys, if you're interested in using these indicators to kind of like time your guys' trades to see if the market's overbought or not, you guys can sign up with my QR code that's down below. The benefit is you could also look at different tickers like Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ. You guys could look at other individual stocks like Microsoft or Meta if you want to see how they're looking, what their average fair value is, and if it's a good place to be buying. Here's a hint. When looking at Tesla, this is not the best of place to sell or buy. We're just neutral. And until we get a good rating, we're not really ready yet. But you guys can see these indicators worked very well back in 2024. We got a nice buy rating at 190, followed by this big rally. And as we started to pump above like 400, this is when we got major sell signals, because right after that, we dumped all the way back down to the 200s. And then here's where we started to get major buy signals around the low 200s, followed by some sell signals in the higher 300s, which takes us back to where we are now. So our DPO indicator works very well for timing tops and bottoms, but we're not necessarily ready for a big update yet. We're not really seeing a sell rating or a buy rating yet. So we have to wait and see. If Tesla starts selling off more in August, there could be another buying opportunity. And I'll let you guys know in case that happens. So for your longer term investments, if you want to see opportunities to buy, if you guys have trouble figuring out when you should be buying or not, this tool could be very, very useful if you look at other tickers. So I just want to give you guys a heads up about that in case you guys are interested. Anyways, that is it for this video. I thank you all so much for listening. Please have an awesome rest of your guys' days, and I'll be back very soon with another upload for my next video. Thank you for listening, and peace out.